So the Cro-Magnon man settled about 60,000 years ago in Eurasia, in the Asian steppes, and in India as well. And then around 30,000 years after that, they finally settled into Europe really well. Before that, there was, animals there, or humanoids, that were using stone tools. Here's some charts I got from Wikipedia. It shows the first migrations, and shows how they're slowly migrating more and more toward Europe, but they're not really they're not really into Western Europe until the end of the migration, about 30,000 years ago, which goes with what I've been saying. Here's a picture of some Kenyan hand axes, and they actually date to 1.4 million years ago. And then you have ones in Ethiopians, the Olodowan's tools. They date to, these right here, they date to 1.7 million years ago. So when we talk about the first empires and the first people, there was, the Nubians evolved the tools that were being used by the people before them, and they were also considered Nubians as well. And people mixed together all over the country, all over Asia, all over Europe, all over Africa. So when we talk about, as you saw how the maps before fits into this map, how they were in Turkey a little bit, and then slowly they go into Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, etc., etc., and they start spreading out. Remember how the Vikings were fighting from Scandinavia? They're going around fighting with the English, and how Spain and France were invaded by the Moors, and parts of their country were taken by the Moors, and Spain was occupied by the Moors for quite some time, and how a lot of Muslims fled there during their wars. You look at, here's the Vatican, and here's the Greece. You look at where everything's situated. In Hungary, Austria-Hungary, the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So you talk about the Teutons in Germany, and you had the Germanic tribes as well. And the Germanic tribes appeared about 500 BCE in Germany, but they go back to about 1800 BCE. So those guys, the Teutons and all these guys, the Roman, their origins are firmly established over there. They have quite a large amount of activity going on over there as well. The whole time Egypt is having its dynasties, you have the Germanic tribes in Europe, the Teutons there, the Saxons, you have the Scythians, and you have all these different European tribes fighting with people like the Huns, fighting with the Italians, the Germanic tribes. Germany invades Italy at one point, and later on they team up, for World War II. And of course you have the countries no one talks about, like Ukraine, Belarus, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Czech Republic, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Yugoslavia, etc., etc., Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, these small countries no one ever talks about as well. And you have the seas that are relevant: North Sea, Black Sea, Caspian Sea, Mediterranean Sea, etc. So when we're talking about the Portuguese pirates and the Irish and the United Kingdom, and how Germany bombed England in World War II, the UK in World War II, and a lot of people were killed. And you see, have the Armenians, who are talked about in the Bible, and Georgia, and how they almost had their problem with Russia, and how conspiracy theorists claim it happened a certain way. I'm not really going to take a stance on that because I don't know for sure, but I definitely know a lot of this conflict has to do with money, war profiteering, and power, and us trying to have a bigger slice of the pie, and other countries not liking it, like the oil in the Straits of Hormuz. But this video is about England and Europe, and the history of Germany, and how it ties into the history of other places, and how they're the same people and they look at it that way. And so you have this European grouping of Christians. Remember, you had the Byzantines splitting from the Roman Empire, and you had these Roman emperors like Vespasian, you had Nero, you had all these emperors, Julius Caesar, Augustus, okay, Caligula, a lot of famous, cruel emperors that did a lot of bad things. So, when we talk about the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Ptolemies, okay, the Euclidean Empire, the Kushans, okay, all these like Middle Eastern empires, they tie into the European empires, and they tie into the story as well. Like the Ottomans fighting with the Europeans, and the bankers. I talked about that in the Florence, and how the Florence had the florin, and how the Italian bankers were fighting with the Jewish bankers, and they banned the Jewish bankers, and all this stuff was going on, and how the Jewish bankers were always good historically at using other countries to do their dirty work. So we go on to talk about Germany and World War II, and how it ties into World War I and World War III. Remember, Bavarian region in Germany. And you had the French, who had the Jacobins, and they had the revolutionaries there as well. The Spanish, where you have Columbus, and he was in front of the court, and he catches a lot of heat. So, if you truly understand the difference between the secret societies, is very minimum. When they fled to Switzerland, a lot of these Templars and stuff, and they fled England, they made their center of operations in London. London Square is one of their centers of operations for the Masonic, for the Masons and for what they do. So, if you remember how Germany violated its non-aggression pact and invaded anyway, and how much turmoil that caused. What was the pretense for war? He basically dressed up some people as their enemies and claimed that they attacked him. So he made a pretense of war like we did in the Gulf of Tonkin. So we go on to talk about Russia, and you have the Tsars, and you have Tsar Nicholas, and you have the October Revolution. I told you about that, and Stalin, and how he used food as a weapon. And then you have Turkey, and how we gave them a lot of money and aid. It's one of those countries we gave a lot of money to, like Pakistan, that doesn't really make sense. So we talk about Romania and Bulgaria and Austria, Hungary, and okay. So we go to the Netherlands. I told you about the Sabbats and saboteurs in the Netherlands, just to show you where these countries are at and how they fit into the big picture, and help you remember a lot of these countries and where their locations are. Because I know geography is something that a lot of people struggle with, and so I throw that in my video as well. A lot of these maps and migrations help you understand exactly how it went, and who's related to who, and why, who sided with who, and where they were, and how you understand that these people were all the way over here in Europe, and how these Spanish right here were getting invaded the other way. There wasn't much of the invading going down, and how not all the people here are Indo-Europeans, but a lot of them are. Germanic peoples are Indo-Europeans, for instance. So just like the Berbers, but the difference is they're the European Indo-Europeans, not the African Indo-Europeans. There's quite a distinct difference. So I got about a minute left. So remember, we talked about Spartacus and the Macedonians and the Spartans and the Athenians, and how they had their their difference, and the Trojans, the Trojan horse. Remember, these people apply these historical stories. And Socrates and Plato and Solon, and how they got the stories from Egypt, and Herodotus, and how Serapis comes from Apis and Osiris. Okay, so what the next move is America doesn't have the resources to go to war with Russia. Not at this point. But they do have the resources to take smaller countries and gain more resources. And that's what's really the game's about right now. It's about gathering enough resources so we can win the next World War.